Bama's off on Wednesday, but they had a pretty fun Tuesday of practice.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Alabama Internet legend Jimmy Stein. That's him. I want to thank you every day for being here every day. Thank you, newbies, for being here today. And thanks, everybody, for making this first listen every single day. Jimmy, Alabama had a practice on Tuesday. They will not practice today, Wednesday. They're going to take the day off. It was a chilly practice. I bet they dug that. I mean, Usually you think spring and it's like
hot,
grossly hot, but it was, in the low 50s, pretty cool, literally. And so what do you know? What happened in practice today? Or yesterday?
Really, it's sort of it's like we talked about with the scrimmage being a confirmation of what we heard so far. Really felt like the practice reports and what went on in the field in terms of what can be reported from the media's brief viewing lines up with what we heard from the scrimmage. I mean, it really goes to show how, even though we don't think we're getting a lot of information, we are, because nothing is a surprise. For instance, at quarterbacks, and of course I'm reading, by the way, to credit them, along with what I've heard myself. I'm also going to credit Charlie Potter and Blake Byler from BOL, also Katie Wyndham from SI Central. I remember I read her report as well. Ty Simpson first, Austin Mack second, Keelan Russell third in the line. Again, that lines up exactly with what we've heard from the scrimmage in terms of how they're lined up. Now, does that mean that anything is set? Of course not. It's just they got to line up some way, and that was how they lined up day one. And it only makes sense that here we are, and nothing has really changed. There's only been a couple of scrimmages. Keelan, for instance, just got there. He's still learning a playbook. I mean, that's literally, while Ty and Austin are working on refining things, Keelan is literally learning the plays. And again, the fact that he's third in line, what does that mean? It means something. It just doesn't mean everything. Ryan Williams, again, not practicing while the media was able to view, but he wasn't in a black jersey. He was in a crimson jersey. That's indicative that he's probably doing some things out there. He just wasn't doing something in front of the media or working in those particular drills that the media was there for. But Ryan was in a crimson jersey, working on stationary bikes along with Gino Vandermark, who also didn't, I didn't recall hearing his name in the scrimmage either. So I think Gino might be a little banged up. So that's interesting. One more interesting thing, the first team offensive line was exactly as reported in the scrimmage. The first team offensive line remains, of course, Wilkin Formby at right tackle, of course, Jaden Roberts at right guard, of course, Parker Brailsford at center. The little news would be Cam Dewberry at left guard and Olas Allen at left tackle. Now, keep in mind, Caden Proctor is going to be the left tackle this fall when he's healthy, right? And Cam Dewberry at left guard, maybe that's huge news that he's with the ones, but we just said Gino Vandermark is on the exercise bikes and he's a little banged up. So I wouldn't go too far with the notion that Dewberry's just won the job. That's just too soon to state. But offensively, those are just a few observations so far. Again, Ryan out, so Zay Horton and Jeremy Bernard led the wide receiver group, and we're down to just one scholarship tight end practicing at all in Jay Lindsey.
Refresh my memory. Dewberry was not a starter at A&M, right?
He was real interestingly. He was. I think he's played in 30 SEC football, 30 games over 3 years at A&M, primarily as an off the bench and garbage time guy. However, in his freshman season, and I mean his true freshman season, he actually started 5 games there. They clearly had some sort of injury issue that led him into the lineup, I'm sure, as a true freshman. But he started 5 or 6 games as a freshman. He has started, I think, an additional 5 or 6 games over the course of the next 2 years, serving as what amounts to their 6th offensive lineman. So he's kind of been what Gino Vandermark was to Alabama last year, that's kind of what he's been at A&M, and A&M's got a pretty decent offensive line. So Dewberry, a major candidate to start, but it was never going to be a slam dunk. I just find it kind of fun that the left guard battle might come down to what amounts to last year's Alabama's sixth guy, Gino Vandermark, and A&M's sixth guy, Cam Dewberry, sort of battling out to be Alabama's fifth guy, this year. But overall, we'll see. By the way, it further reported that the second offensive line consisted of Jackson Lloyd and Big Mike Carroll at the tackles. Mal Waldrop playing guard, because I heard he played tackle in the scrimmage. Joe Ionata was the center, and Will Sanders was the other right guard. Again, Casey Poe banged up, Gino Vandermark out and hurt. It really is the number one story of the spring. Like, what's the biggest story this spring? The number of players out, the number of players limited, and the number of players that were additionally hurt during the course of the spring left Alabama very sparse. But no one needs to panic, because to my knowledge, everyone is projected to be 100% come July 31st, when fall camp should probably start.
On the other side of the ball, one thing that I noticed from the BOL report, James Smith and Cavante Henry, they go through some ball security drills and things like that, but they were wearing black jerseys. Again, I'm like you, it's not overly concerning. I know enough about James Smith, certainly, to not be concerned. I feel like Cavante Henry, who was one of the best, if not the best, JUCO player in the country this past year, I feel like, okay, probably know what he is. But I don't know what – I guess it's just all these little things are beginning to add up to me.
Yeah. It certainly shows. I know there's some people upset still about that there won't be a game on A-Day. I mean, this is why. I mean, there's not, it's really almost difficult to practice. They're missing so many guys, in multiple spots. It's not just that there's one tight end, which is problematic enough, but they're shallow in other spots. And by the way, after the spring's over, we'll work on this. Cavante Henry has changed his name and goes by something else entirely that sounds nothing like Cavante Henry. We need to learn that before.
Well, in the report, it said Cavante.
I know. That's how kind of new this is, and how new it is for everyone. I'm not even really sure. I think it's Fatua. It appears to be Samoan in some way.
But he's not Samoan, is he?
Fatutua, I think is the first name. Tutua. I don't know. I didn't know.
Is Henry a Samoan surname?
It maybe. Well, he could have a Samoan parent, I suppose. I suppose it could be one and not both, but I don't know. I just know that he literally goes by another name, and we'll need to learn that at some point. Right now, he's not even playing. He probably won't even, like Luke said, black jersey today. I don't think he's done much this spring because of the injury situation. So we'll focus. Our focus will change so much starting next week when A-Day is over, and we start focusing on things like the NFL draft, which I am just jonesing about the NFL draft. But I'm trying to put that off until A-Day's behind us. And then, of course, we have the May evaluation period, and then we have June when all the camps and visits start happening at Alabama. So we got a lot coming up, but we will focus more on the fall roster, including how to pronounce all these names, which will be a good show, by the way. We could get the correct pronunciations for all the difficult ones, and we could work on it as part of the show, so everybody watching or listening goes, because we'll get the right ones.
One of the best shows we could ever do would be if I just got the basketball program from the AHSA championships and brought it in here and read off the names. I mean, not only are there some very highly unusual names from time to time, a lot of times there'll be 7 Stacys on the same team, and they all spell it differently on the girls' side. Stacy with an I, Stacy with an EY, Stacy with a Y, Stacy with a silent J. Just crazy stuff. But before we go to break, and we're going to talk about 5 defensive players who are on the clock in terms of committing to Alabama. A buddy of mine who happens to be an Auburn fan did this for us, Jimmy, since we always have these Simpson references. How about that? How about that?
I think it's
that's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
For those who don't know,
hang it in the Louvre.
Jimmy and I have been Simpsonized, And
hanging in the Louvre.
It's even got like the little fountain behind me.
You always, yeah. That's detail. Somebody went to and had the little, whatever show it was that day. And frankly, I was far more handsome.
You are a more handsome
I want to look like
Simpson guy than you are in this picture.
I like to think of myself in that picture as crazy Jason Bateman.
Time to talk a little supply house. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades at Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, and it'll be delivered fast, and it's coast to coast, baby. Join the Trade Master Program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse. Jimmy.
Come.
There we go. I hope nobody put supplyhouse.jimmy. That's
how they do
what that site is.
That's how they do it on The Simpsons, just like how we did it there.
All right. So some guys that are 5 to watch for, according to BOL. This is one of my favorites that they are going to be at 8A, it looks like. And I
like how on the clock sounds very draftish.
It does. Sincere Johnson. Oh, man, what a name. What a name. With a C, too. I just love it.
My comp for him is Reuben Foster, but I'm Reuben Foster light. That's putting too much on him. He's not a 5-star like Reuben, but gosh, his game reminds me of Reuben.
And he's got, I'm trying to think, he's built a little like Reuben. He really is. And he's got, I'm looking at his profile picture right now, and he's got a head built for slamming it into things. I mean, he's got he looks like a mean-headed dude.
He's a throwback. He's a throwback, a little bit like Reuben was. But Reuben could surprise you in pass coverage, and I think Sincere's not so old school that he's ineffective. I mean, I think this guy can play in space, just like Reuben ultimately proved he could. But man, we could do a whole show on Reuben. Reuben's one of my favorite examples.
Is he going to leave the state of Ohio, Sincere Johnson?
Well, we have beaten. I mean, Justin Hill did. I mean, the thing is, for those that go, there's no chance here that Ohio State's going to lose out on an in-state player to Alabama. We just beat them for Justin Hill, who Ohio State definitely wanted, and Ohio State's mods the whole time were like, he's going to go to Ohio State, and then so. I think Alabama's got a legitimate, realistic shot, but because he's from Ohio and the Buckeyes want him, this is why I don't bet on these things. I mean, you'd be a little crazy to bet on him going to Alabama, but it's very realistic, legitimately could happen.
But he had 205 tackles last year.
Holy,
that's a ridiculous number.
I need a sandwich after that guy.
I mean, yeah. Then there's Jaquez Wilkes. Now, this is another one. This is where I probably misled some of y'all just to draw you into the podcast, like 5 on the clock who will ultimately commit to Bama. We've already told you Sincere Johnson is going to be a tough pull. Alabama's definitely in it. I think Wilkes ultimately is a tough pull too, simply because it feels like an Auburn guy. Now, yeah. I'm all for him being in this class, 100% sincerely. But he's got Auburn and Florida State and Georgia and Miami and Texas A&M and all the. And look, Alabama, he's coming in for an unofficial this weekend. He was the one MVP of the 1A state championship game. I called it. He was unstoppable. Now, again, we've said this multiple times. Think about Michael Jordan playing in a junior high when he should have been in the NBA. That's sort of how this was. I mean, Jaquez Wilkes was so much better than everybody. It's hard to know exactly how good he is, except for the fact that he's built like a Brinks truck. So
he rushed for 300 yards. He rushed for 300 yards in the state championship.
and
in the
5
state championship
touchdowns.
game, and he's a much better prospect on defense.
And an interception on defense.
I'm a huge Wilkes fan, and this is why this is kind of weird, and it has a lot to do with what Luke's saying about Auburn. He feels and looks exactly like the type player that Alabama and Auburn fight over all throughout the 80s and 90s. I'm not saying he's a throwback. This feels like this is an Alabama-Auburn recruiting battle in 1992. And that's what it feels like to me. I don't know why, but it just does. And I love Wilkes. I hope it's Alabama. I'm with Luke. I think Auburn is going to be tough to beat here. And again, Auburn traditionally has done well with kind of rural kids from that area. But I love him. I said all along, I was trying not to get too much of a bro crush on Jaquez Wilkes because I wasn't sure with him playing at a 1A school that Alabama was going to really pull the trigger here because these 1A evaluations are so tough. But I told y'all at that time, if Alabama did pull the trigger, he was going to vault to the top of my wish list because I love watching this kid play. I realize he's a gamble because you never know with these small school kids, but this is a gamble I want to take. I mean, I hope he ends up in Alabama's class. I love the versatility that this guy has. He's not just a linebacker, he's a ball player.
Wasn't Jamarian Latham a 1A?
He was, and it took him a while, I think, to develop, and he's been a solid player. I would say Wilkes is probably a better prospect than Latham was.
Is ahead of him
as a prospect. As a prospect, I think Wilkes is ahead, but it is a 1A thing. And I think one general lesson, and there's exceptions to every rule, but generally the smaller school guys, it takes them a while to catch up to the speed of things when the game moves faster. I remember when I was at Alabama, one of my buddies was playing football for Alabama, and so we hadn't been practicing very long, or Alabama hadn't practiced very long, and I asked him, I'm like, what's it like out there in the practice field? Because you've been, at my high school for so long. And by the way, I went to a 6A, 7A school. And he said, the only way, and this is the practice field, the only way I can describe it is this: the biggest guy I ever went up against would be the smallest player on that field. And the fastest guy I went up against in high school would be the slowest guy on that field. And this is a guy coming from big 6A, 7A football, and the speed and size of it all was overwhelming for him on the practice field. And by the way, that guy eventually became a starter and an all SEC player. So that's the way that
what does his name rhyme with?
Well, I mean, I guess it's not really a secret. It's a center, Toby Shields. People could look it up. Toby Shields, yeah. Oh, he's a great player. Great player. But that's what Toby told me soon after being on the practice field, that the biggest guys the biggest guys he played against at Fairhope were to be the smallest on that field, and the fastest guys he played against in high school be the slowest. And now imagine coming from a 1A or 2A school and you're out there. I mean, so these smaller school guys like Jaquez Wilkes, it's going to take a hot minute, but the payoff can be big because the NFL is just littered with guys that come from small towns. I mean, they ain't all from Atlanta and Dallas and Miami.
All right. And so then 3 more guys. Jet Washington, who we've really already talked about. We talked about him yesterday. If you want to hear about Jet Washington, check out the podcast yesterday. We didn't go into it a lot, but he's from Bishop Gorman High School, which is one of the powerhouses in all the country in Las Vegas. And look, he's going to be a tough pull, but I think Alabama is a super duper threat here. Then you got Kamarian Johnson and Tyson Bacon. These are 2 3-star defensive linemen who I believe, in my opinion, both will be bumped up to 4-star status by the time all said and done. Now, Bacon's already committed to Tennessee. He's at Hoover. Kamarian Johnson at Muscle Shoals. I think Alabama's a legit threat for both these guys too.
Yeah. I'd say legit threat. And if I had to pick one that's going to commit next, I would go with Kamarian Johnson.
Yeah. Would that quell some of the angst that some people have about defensive line? We come on here, and you and I specifically, we just end up talking about offensive lineman recruiting and tight end recruiting and wide receiver recruiting because it seems like that's what we're recruiting the most of. But I'm like everybody else. I'd like to hear more defensive line recruiting. But if you told me that after A-Day, Bacon and Johnson commit to Bama, I'm thinking, okay, I'm satisfied.
I think the loudest critics / cynics would say that they're not rated highly enough and that they're just guys, because they're gonna buy into what they're rated today, which is again the first quarter of a 4-quarter game. It's like deciding a game is over halfway through the first quarter. Ask Houston, today, or, ask the Houston Cougars, what that leading early or being behind early, it doesn't really matter. But boy, people just lock into rankings early. But I think they're both moving up like you, Luke. So I don't think the critics or cynics will be satisfied until higher regarded kids, maybe like an Elijah Golden. I mean, I think he's a guy that could be on the clock, as Bone put it in his piece on BOL. That's a guy they could include. One guy you went over real quickly, I just want to remind people because it's such a good story. The safety from Bishop Gorman Jet Washington is Kobe Bryant's nephew. So that gives him some cool points for sure. His mother is Kobe Bryant's sister.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it is.
What a cool thing to just.
Yeah.
What an icebreaker for a date.
He's also tall. He's also tall. I mean, if you look at a picture of Jet Washington for a safety, he's kind of a Dijon Lee build to a defensive back, which makes sense because he's got some Kobe's DNA in him. But yeah, that's a cool story that Jet Washington is related to Kobe, related closely.
All right, we're going to talk a little basketball now. We haven't even talked about Jaleel Bethea, who did commit to Alabama. One of our listeners reached out to me and DM'd me and said, look, why aren't you talking about this? Now, I was like, we meant to. And
we talked about him prior to him.
We talked about him prior to
it said that he was likely to commit. Yeah.
And it's a big deal. I mean, he's a great player, 5-star. He was the number 6 player in his class. I know things didn't pan out Miami. Miami was just a hot mess this past year. I'm willing to sort of chalk that up to being a hot mess. Now, the other thing that I'm hearing, there is optimism may be the wrong word. There is hope that some combination, if not all three, of Reed, Stevenson, and Philon may come back. We may be able to work this out where all three of them were to come back.
That would be I mean, I'll say me and Luke didn't talk about that off air. I would be, first of all, thrilled. I mean, dancing in the streets, and I'm not a dancer, but that would probably lead me to some level of dancing. That would be fantastic. And I would be shocked at how Alabama could pull that off. And what I'm talking about, obviously, is budgetary, because that wouldn't be easy to do. I think people look at the fact that Reed didn't play a whole lot and Stevenson got off to a slow start this year. But y'all would all be shocked at the size of offers they get from elsewhere. And that makes it difficult to bring them all back. But it would be fantastic. I think, you bring all three of them back, Luke, I would argue vehemently that Alabama's a preseason top 5 team and probably more like top 2 or 3.
It's interesting you say that because On 3 has come out with their top 25 and Alabama's number 3. Now, these are an exercise in futility.
Yeah, it's kind of silly to me.
No idea.
Silly to me until the portal closes.
It's silly in the same way that when you and I do who's the hottest on Alabama's roster is silly because you need content. So, Jeff, On 3 needed content. Jeff Rothstein, who he came out with his Rothstein's 45, he's got Alabama at 4. And what's interesting about that, he even has in his key players leaving, he has LeBaron Philon leaving and Alabama still being 4, which I was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd buy into that because I think Philon will be a big part of preseason rankings to me.
Now, I'm not going to get into specifics, but I have heard some numbers that potentially are being offered to Philon from us, and they are significant. And what and also I believe what Alabama is trying to sell here is development. Look, Reed's been hurt. So here's the thing, Darian. Do you want to go somewhere else, learn a new system, and try and get better? Or you can stay here. We know you were hurt. We know what you have, and we know what we want to do with you. And we also put people in the first round of the NBA. Stay here, learn this with a good team, get exposure. Another thing that I noticed about Rothstein's top 45, and I'll pull it up here so I can actually say it, but the people that Alabama is playing on this list. I mean, to
basically the top 10.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. It is an unbelievable. I'm trying to find. Why can't I just pull up? Is it John Rothstein?
John Rothstein. Yeah. Well, because I think you married up. What's his name? Jeff. There is a Jeff Goodman. What's this? Is it Goodman? Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff Goodman and Jeff. Yeah,
Jeff, you married Jeff Goodman and John Rothstein. So I got it. But
wait a minute. Let me give you his top 45 here, okay? Because I've got them in front of me. So he has Houston at 1. Which, look, first of all, we don't know if Terrence Arsenault is going to come back and Emmanuel Sharp. I would assume Emmanuel Sharp probably after that game Monday night is like, I got to come back and do something. But Purdue, he has them number 2 because they got Oscar Clough from South Dakota State in the portal, who was a lot of people think may have been the number 1 player in the portal. And remember, Purdue's coming to Tuscaloosa next year. Now they have Duke number 3. This is just my theory. This is not something I've heard. They had Alabama and Auburn play Duke and Carolina on the road last year. My guess, and this is a complete guess, probably won't happen. Wish it would. It wouldn't shock me if they flip-flop them, say Carolina to Auburn, Duke to Bama this year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not nuts.
No, it's not nuts, and it makes sense because they try to get the most. I mean, it wouldn't be as interesting if like the matchup is Duke versus LSU, based on what happened last year. In other words, the matchups are not random. The matchups are meant to put together as many competitive games. Who they're good against SEC's good, and like they're middle against our middle. Yeah, all the way down. They try to match it up that way. So based on that, you would have to think Alabama and Auburn at the top, and who's going to be at the top of the ACC as usual. So, wow.
Okay.
All cool stuff.
He's got Bama at 4. Now, I've got to also look up who's all in that Vegas tournament because a lot of the teams that are on this are in that Vegas tournament. I think are there 16 teams in it this year or something like 20, maybe something.
And the field will look like the Sweet 16.
But he also has Arizona at 11. By the way, Jaden Bradley will be coming back. And if you don't know, Alabama is playing Arizona in Birmingham next year. He's got Auburn at 12. Of course, we play them. Florida at 14 and Kentucky at 15. Of course, we play them. St. John's at 16. I'm still – and BYU at 17. I'm holding out hope that we play either one or both of these because we were really trying to get a game with St. John's in Madison Square Garden last year. It didn't work out. And then BYU, just for the AJ DeBansta and NCAA tournament rematch would be cool. Arkansas at 18. Tennessee at 20. Creighton, our arch nemesis, at 22. And Mississippi State at 25. Missouri 27, Illinois 29. I mean, we're playing all these teams. Some of them will play twice.
So I'm saying I don't think we've given enough credit to NATO. It's not only are we back-to-back Elite Eights, over that period of time, these 2 seasons in which Alabama was an Elite Eight team, there is no question Alabama's played the toughest schedule over those 2 years. There's just no doubt. And now to do it, obviously he sees it as a way to build the program and team build and keep you tough. And it's hard to argue with the results, but man, it makes for an exhausting season, doesn't it? I remember back in the 80s, I heard one coach say, I remember a coach say, you're not going to be a great team if you play nothing but great teams. You're just going to lose too much. What you need to do is beat a bunch of bad teams and tell everybody you're great.
All right. By the way,
Nate is not doing that.
No, he's not. I pulled up the Players Era tournament. All right, Bama and Auburn, Baylor, who's won a national championship in the last 5 years or whatever, Creighton, our arch nemesis, Gonzaga, who is, just all they do is make the NCAA tournament and usually the Sweet 16, Houston, the preseason number 1, Iowa State preseason number 6, Kansas, Michigan preseason number 5. These are all from Rothstein's thing, by the way. Oregon preseason number 13 maybe in his thing. St. John's, who I mentioned I wish we'd play. San Diego State, who just got that behemoth to come back. and then Tennessee and UNLV. I assume Zach Arnett will not be able to get free tickets to this UNLV thing, as allegedly.
No, I don't.
I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it. I don't want to get in trouble.
None of that's confirmed. None of that's confirmed.
I'm just Google Zach Arnett and latest and see what comes up. That's all. All right. I know Jimmy is so nervous we're about to get fired.
It's the lawyer. I can't outrun the lawyer in me.
I know.
I try.
Unfortunately, I'm pretty fast.
I try. I know you were that's what you keeping me in business when I was back in that business.
All right. That's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.